Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about happiness and parenting. Whether your kids are still at home or out on their own, there are always things we can do to foster happier, more loving relationships. Join us as we share the old habits we're trying to break and the new ones we hope will take their place. Today we're continuing our Happier at Home book series. This is a book written by best-selling author Gretchen Rubin, designed to make our homes places of greater simplicity, comfort, and love. The book tackles one topic related to happiness each month from September through May. Last month, in episode 54, we talked about increasing the happiness of our marriage, and this month we're talking about happiness and parenthood. And Julie and Mindy, I know you guys have heard the phrase, you're only as happy as your least happy kid. Mindy, does that hold true for you?
Well, yes, it does. Everyone could be kind of going with the flow, and it just takes one person with one bad attitude, and you would like to just say, please remove yourself until that attitude is better.
Yes, yes.
Don't mess with the rest of us. Don't bring that in here.
Yes. Well, Julie, have you found that to be true in your life also, that you can only be as happy as your least happy kid?
That's definitely true, especially more so when they were at home.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that people that maybe only have one child think, oh, well, as long as the other one's happy or whatever, but somehow it just doesn't quite make up for the unhappy one. You know, that's the one you're focused on.
It's true, Julie. Yeah, you do think about when there's a problem, that's what your mind goes to.
Right.
How about you, Marie?
Oh, yes, definitely. It's kind of like one of those mother duck images. Every kid needs to be in line and around you, or maybe like in the nest before you can settle down and be okay. And if you know that someone is unhappy or falling behind or not in the row, you just have this instinct to keep trying to push them along.
Right.
If everyone's in a good place, then you can be in a good place. Well, in this book, Gretchen says that no matter how much we want to make our kids happy, we can't. And they have to figure out happiness for themselves. However, we do know that family members can have a big effect on each other's happiness, so we can try to be good influences in that area. And for this chapter, she devoted a whole month to becoming a more lighthearted, loving mother. So in keeping with our other months, we had to increase the happiness level of parenting in our lives during the month of November. So September we did possessions, October we did marriage, and all of November we had to focus on increasing the happiness around parenting. What did each of you think of this chapter? Mindy, what did you think about it?
It sparked a lot of different thoughts. I ended up taking a lot of notes, and it wasn't necessarily exactly what she said, but as I pondered, there were things that started to come to mind of things that I could try to incorporate or do, because I've been a parent for a while, and you think you have it down, like you get into a rhythm, I guess. But when you actually sit and think about maybe the problem areas, or you think about things that you're not necessarily joyful about, then that's when you can start finding areas, places, words, behaviors, attitudes that you want to focus on. So I enjoyed it. Yeah. How about you guys?
What do you think about it, Julie?
I really did enjoy it. When I first started reading her words, though, I was a little bit melancholy because I thought, she has young children. And the things she was implementing, there's always things you wish you could go back and redo.
Right.
And I can't implement those little childhood things anymore. Like my parenthood is done. I still have relationships with my kids, but my hands-on parenting is done. So I had to kind of tweak it and think about continuing relationships with adult children. It was just interesting to be reminded that you can't make people happy, and to remember that what makes other people happy it's not always the same as what makes me happy. One of the things she says is one of the best ways to make myself happy is to make other people happy. And one of the best ways to make other people happy is to be happy myself. And I think our kids want us to be happy. And this is probably more true with adult children. They think and consider our happiness, but they don't necessarily want to have to make us happy because they can't. And so in order for me to have the best relationship I can have with my adult children, I need to be happy on my own, not because of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's very thoughtful. I like that.
If my parents aren't happy, there's not much I can do about it, but it would still weigh on me, almost like it would weigh on me if one of my kids wasn't happy. Like, that's going to weigh on me, and I don't want that burden, and so our adult children don't want that burden either.
Right.
So, Mindy, what are some of the things that you decided to focus on this month?
For each kid, I made particular goals, but all of the goals kind of stemmed around some major topics. So one was communication. I wanted to be able to encourage each of them more. I wanted to pray for them more. And I wanted to really just focus on their interests more. So the things that were important to them, I wanted to be important to me. The second thing was I wanted to model the behavior that I hoped to see in them. I really tried to cut out some of the teasing and joking that I thought might be harmful, and especially with my boys. That can really go too far with the boys. And so that was something else. I loved her entering into the interests of others, and that kind of goes along with that I wanted to see the things that each of them were doing as important and give my full attention to that. Like, instead of just saying, oh, yeah, as I continue to do whatever activity I'm doing, that I would fully give my attention to that. And then also help make that happen for them, to spend time and help them fulfill the things that were important to them.
I think we all get in the habit of just like half listening, but we're really planning tonight's dinner and, what we're going to do next.
And
like when you hear something like, oh, I need to listen now. This is important. So
yes.
Then I feel bad. Yeah, wait, what did you just say? Because now you're asking for a commitment or money.
I know. It's totally true. So I think any mom that's listening can relate to that need to enter more into the interests of others. All right. So how did some of those things go in your house this month, Mindy?
Well, it's amazing when you start focusing on something that you really see it. And that can be very discouraging as a mom. And ironically, when I started focusing on encouragement or trying to have kindness in our home, stopping the teasing like between the boys and making sure I wasn't entering in and kind of all of us ganging up on one person unknowingly, thinking out of fun, whatever, but that I noticed it more. And so that's been something that I've become much more aware that the power of words in our house needs to be addressed. And that words, as much as actions, can really build a person up or tear a person down. So I was made very aware that our home needs to continue to work on this. At the same time, I found out a couple of things about my kids, which were pretty exciting. And I'll focus more on my youngest, Nathan. He got the great idea that he was going to learn to do a backflip. And so dedicated to this idea, watching YouTube videos. He's trying to do these moves we call it our man cave. There's a lot of floor that he can work on. Next thing I know, I'm in the kitchen. He's pulling out my twin mattress on the back lawn. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. It's a guest twin bed. And I go out the back door. I'm like, buddy, I love how dedicated you are to this backflip, but you cannot take my twin mattress outside. This went on for a week. He was so dedicated to this idea. And I'm like, how can I encourage this hard work? He will not give up. He wants to do this. How can I help him? So we actually ended up calling around and I found an advanced boys tumbling and trampoline class.
Oh, wow.
That he is now enrolled in every Tuesday night from 7 to 8:30. He can flip around all he wants to. I get to save my furniture and my bedding. And it's so great. And so I loved being able to enter into Nathan's interest of, he has a dream of doing a backflip.
Yeah.
Let's try to help that happen. So that was actually very successful.
Now, Mindy, if you hadn't have been reading that book this month, do you think that you would have said, put my mattress back, and just let him keep practicing on the trampoline and not really pursued a class? Do you think reading the book and being more conscious of trying to enter into his interests kind of made you make that phone call?
I do feel like it helped. I do feel like it helped me say, I want to encourage this hard work, this work ethic that he has. And I had been ruminating on what can I do for each child, and how can I help them in their life. I hadn't even written down like tumbling for Nathan. That wasn't one of the things that I thought of. But after a week of him not letting it go, I mean, maybe he would have worn me down eventually. But that is something that I wouldn't necessarily have signed a child up for. With my youngest, I realized how fast he's growing up. And I thought, wow, like he's asking to do this. And it seems like, I'll call it a little boy interest. So I want to encourage him in his pursuits while he's still willing to step out there and try something new. Because I know at some point in his life, he won't want to try things that are new anymore like that.
Right.
And it sounds much safer at the trampoline park than on a mattress in your backyard.
Yes, Julie, you are absolutely right.
For sure. For sure. Well, how did your kids react to the increased communication?
That has been really good. We've had a lot more discussions. I didn't do as well as I hoped to do with like sending encouragement by text. I noticed that days were going by and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to do that. But it was definitely something that I noticed we made a bigger deal of in the house to try to even encourage one another. And so by me modeling that behavior, I felt like it helped everyone else in the things that they were saying to one another. I also tried to work on underreacting to their problems, which I felt like I did a pretty good job at when I was being intentional. But I had one major mom fail yesterday. So It's quite fresh on my mind, and I'll be more than happy to share that later on when it's time.
Yes. Listeners, we're going to get to our failures a little bit later, lest you think that we went into this and succeeded everywhere we tried. Well, I'll kind of piggyback on what you said, Mindy. I also tried to do the underreacting to problems. My goal was to not rise to the emotional level of, in particular, my twins. They are 15 years old. They are full of drama. They are girls. And if you've raised any teenage girls, you know that it can be really high one minute and really low the next. So when the girls are fighting in those situations, it's easy for me to feel like I could just jump right in there and meet or exceed their emotional level in just a few seconds. So this month, I tried to tell myself that just because they were upset and angry and amped up didn't mean that I had to be, which seems kind of obvious, but it can be hard to tell yourself that. And I could react calmly. I could talk the situation out. I could think of solutions without all the emotional upheaval. So that was one of my goals, was just to maybe not enter into the fray so easily. And Julie, I know that you don't have kids at home anymore, but Mindy, do you ever find yourself entering into the fray?
Oh my goodness, Marie. Yes. Yes. That was part of my underreacting, was just not getting involved and being willing to say, we're not going to talk about it until you're going to be calm and respectful. And I found myself saying that quite a few times.
Right. And lots of times there needs to be a big break in the amount of time between that time and when you actually do talk about it.
I'm pretty sure I kicked kids out of the house a couple of times and said, go for a walk. Don't leave the neighborhood, and then come back and we'll talk.
Yes. Yes. Well, another example of me rising to their emotions is maybe not even them being in a fight, but this is a good example of what happens to me. So my girls, they were going to a friend's house right after school, and then they were going straight to the high school football game. And it was a really cold and wet day, and I told them to dress warm and bring extra clothing. And at the end of the day, before they go to the game, I usually stop by and pick up their backpacks and all that. I, of course, texted like moms do, do you need anything? I'm coming over. And then, I think I tried calling. Of course, no one answers their cell phone. So I get over there and Lydia comes running out and she said, oh, I left my jacket at school. And I immediately am thinking, I just drove 20 minutes over here. I'm on my way somewhere. I do not have time to drive 20 minutes back home and 20 minutes back. And I texted and called you. Like, this all goes through my mind in like 2 seconds. And immediately my emotions rise and I'm like, what? Why didn't you call me? I tried. And she's like, but I talked to somebody, to so-and-so, and she's going to let me borrow her sweatshirt. So before she could even get that next part out, I had already, my emotions were already soaring into, why didn't you tell me you needed a coat? And then I was immediately like, oh, okay, well, you've already figured it out. I immediately thought of the book we were reading. I was like, okay, underreact. And one more thing that I wanted to work on was being more accommodating. So you guys, I don't know. Do you think I'm an accommodating person? Flexible? And I'll put you on the spot.
Well, I think so. I mean, but I know when relating to friends and adults, it's just totally different than kids. It is.
Plus, I feel like you're accommodating, but with a plan. Like you're flexible within reason. I mean, you've got enough kids that you're trying to coordinate that you have some room, but not a lot of room when your day has been set. So I could see that. Like,
got to keep some control.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was reading a Facebook post this month and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is totally me. So I was reading the comments as one does. Somebody commented and they said, my husband always shoots down my ideas off the bat. But since I know this about him, I just ask him to think about it and he usually gives in after thinking it through. It's a defense mechanism. He does it to our kids too. Hey, Dad, can we? No. Haha, I wouldn't take it personally. Just plant the seed. Ask her to think about it and come back with an answer in a few days. It's totally how they work. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is me. And when I told my kids about this, they were like, yes, that is you, Mom. Like my immediate answer to anything is usually no. And I don't know if it's because I have 5 kids and over the course of 23 years with all the barrage of questions, everyone's natural defense is going to become no, or if that's just my personality. But like, here's some examples because it happens with small and big requests. Anything that I haven't already planned on. So we're in Costco. I'm in Costco with the girls. I mean, this is so minor, but Lydia's like, can we get strawberries? Because we're passing them by. I go, no. Just completely dismiss strawberries. I'm like,
wow, Marie.
And in my mind, I'm thinking strawberries aren't on the list. They seem extravagant at this time of year because they aren't at their cheapest price.
Right.
Do we get things because you ask? So in my mind, like those 3 thoughts go through. I'm not even hardly conscious of them, but I'm like, no, I just say no. And then I walk around, a little bit more in the produce department of Costco. I'm like, all right, come on, they're 50 cents or maybe $1 more than they were a few months ago. It's not that unreasonable request. So then by the time I'm ready to leave that refrigerated area, I say, okay, fine, put them in the cart. But
it's not candy.
No, I know. So I'm like, I'm just saying no to strawberries because she asked. And it doesn't matter what she asked. My initial reaction is no. This was a bigger one. I took the girls to get their hair cut. And then when they were done, they were like, could we get our hair highlighted? Not that time, but maybe another time.
Right.
They're like, can we get our hair highlighted? I'm like, no. And they're like, why not? And so I'm like, oh, it'll ruin your hair, it'll this. But I'm really thinking, do I want to start something like paying for hair highlights for the next, 5 years until they can take it over on their own? No.
I'd be like, you start saving up.
But then they listed their reasons and I was still saying no, but then I secretly start to think about it. And then they ask me a day later and another day after that, and I see the request isn't going to disappear. So I start to think about it, and I start to think about, well, what parameters would I say yes? And pretty soon, the next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I'm back at that hairdresser getting their hair highlighted.
That's awesome, Marie. Oh, my goodness.
But we had worked out a, compromise on it. But it was just so funny because I had immediately said no to the hair highlighting. Okay, and one more. This was funny. My daughter, she had said, can we go to the mall this week? And always my answer is no. If they ask me to go to the mall, I'm like, no, because I don't want to go to the mall.
Right. Who wants to go to the mall?
But she had planted the seed like on a Sunday. And I knew the request was going to come up. So in my mind, I was thinking on that Wednesday afternoon, well, if they came home and asked me to go to the mall today, I do have time. It wouldn't be the end of the world. I'm reading this book. I'm going to try and say yes. So Lauren comes home and she says, could we go to the mall today, Mom? And I go, sure. You want to leave in 15 minutes? And her face dropped and her mouth opened and she was like, well, I didn't think you were going to say yes. I was expecting that you would say no. And then I would have to ask you, and they know the game. And so I thought that is so true about myself. So I really tried to work on that this month, was being more accommodating, saying yes the first time if possible, not just dismissing everything with a no.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm proud of you. It's a survival technique. I think when you have a lot of kids, you learn how to say no and if you don't know how to say no, you figure it out when you become overwhelmed. And then it's like your kids get a little older and you realize you're actually able to say yes to some things again. And it's hard to start saying yes again because when they were little and you'd go to the grocery store, you have to just say no, or you'd never get through the grocery store on a budget, getting the things you need.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, I'm really proud of you for buying them strawberries. That really is a good thing to do.
All right. Well, Julie, we really need to hear about what you worked on this month.
Yes.
Well, I hope this speaks to somebody with adult children, because it is kind of different than what you guys said, just because my situation's different.
Sure.
My things that I wanted to work on involved words and encouragement and influence. The first thing was to just be more positive and encouraging, especially around my youngest, because he does still live at home and he's a glass half empty person. And I want to change that about him. Like, I see it and I see how it affects him and the people around him, but I know I can't change that. So I can try to be different and to let that, encourage him by me seeing positive things. Mm-hmm. Like when he shares things about struggles with grades or what he wants to do in life, I'm trying to respond with, I'm just so proud of how hard you're working, or you've matured so much since high school, or it's just great seeing you give your best. Mm-hmm. And this is where, with my older two, they're probably going, oh, wow. I wish Mom had told me those things. So I feel like this is the place I have to insert a little apology for being the inexperienced parent with my first child, and really my son too, because he was my first son. Mm-hmm. But I think with your older ones, you're always focused, or at least I was focused on making sure they're living up to their full potential, So even when I was maybe proud of them, I feel like I came across as, ooh, you still could have done a little bit better or a little more. Like next time, try harder. Next time, study harder. And I know they did. Andrew's told me that, like a B could have been an A, like it was just never enough. So I am really trying to just focus on what I see as good and praise that. And especially when your kids are in college, you tend to focus a lot on what they're going to become. Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to think about who he is.
That's really good.
Not what he's going to become. Right. And just give him that time and that space to mature, because it will happen. I've seen that with my other two. It will happen. And just to be really careful about my expectations of him. Like, not putting things on him that are just unnecessary.
That just comes with time. I mean, I know that I was harder on particularly my oldest than any of the other ones. And I think that's just the lot of the oldest in life. But I think all mothers are left feeling a bit guilty about that. It's almost impossible not to do, though. It is your first child. And almost all mothers, I think, would say that they were hardest on their first one.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right. And then the other thing was to just be less bothered and concerned with differences, because as your children grow up and become adults, they are not going to be you. They're going to make their own decisions, live their own lives. And in the past, I've maybe taken some of those decisions and differences a little too personally. So I'm just trying to focus on what we do have in common and how those things can draw us together. Like focus on those common interests and build on those. And, so I think some topics just need to be left alone, like maybe politics. And I heard in a movie recently, our dinner table needs to be Switzerland.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
We are neutral here at the dinner table, or family gatherings or vacations or whatever.
Right.
Some things you just have to leave alone. Because as your family grows, it's going to get more diverse, and your children are adults and thinking for themselves, and they don't necessarily think like you do on everything,
Right.
Right. And it is easy. I can relate to what you're saying, Julie, to take if they make different choices than you do as kind of a rejection of you, like, well, I'm not going to do it the way my mom did it. But that might not have ever entered their mind. It might just be that they're modeling after somebody they admire, or they just really like this other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember my mom saying something to me, and it's something that I loved hearing, and it's something that I have said to all of my children. I remember her saying, I don't want you to be me. I want you to be better than me. And she said, and you're gonna be like, you're gonna do better than me, because you have different things in your life to help set you up. And so that's something that I've with each of my kids, especially as they get older and they do develop their own personalities and things, I want to tell them, look, Bryce and I both say, we want you to be better than us. We want you to go further than us. We want you to, serve the Lord in ways that he's calling you. And it doesn't have to look this way. So it's kind of fun and invigorating to figure out that your kids are different than you. It's really exciting. And at the same time, you have no experience because you don't know what it's like, especially if it's different choices than what you would have made.
I had some specifics too. Like with my daughter, I want to be conscious of still maintaining and working on our relationship because she just had a baby, and I don't want our relationship to get lost in my relationship to my grandson, if that makes sense. Like,
yes, it does.
I know my parents did not do this, but I heard a lot of friends say, oh, when we go to my in-laws or my parents, they just pass us by and go right to the grandkids. And my parents didn't do that. I don't know that would have even bothered me. Like, I love to see my parents loving on my kids, but I have heard a lot of people say that does bother them. So I don't want for every conversation to just be about Ezra and to ask about him first. I want to still work on our relationship.
Yeah, I think that's good, Julie.
Specific that I want to do with her. And then with Andrew, he's my oldest son who is newly married. He's been married for about 2 years. And I know that my role in his life has kind of moved from the foreground to the background. And that's the way it should be. Now that he's married, Kayla, his wife, is his primary bond. And there's another voice in the communication now. And I just don't ever want to put him in a position where he has to choose between me and her. And I think that, that's where some tension can arise between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, is that wanting to have maybe a little more influence over him, like I used to when he was a boy. And so I have one way that I'm trying to kind of counter that is just when I communicate with them, I text them both, like on a group text. I didn't do that at first. I was just texting Andrew, and a couple of things like he forgot or he hadn't talked with Kayla about their calendar. Right. And I think Kayla even may have said, well, just text me because I'm the one that. Right. And I was like, oh, wow, like that could have, I hope it didn't hurt her feelings. I never meant for it to. So now I just text them both. Like there's really nothing I need to say to Andrew that she can't hear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is a way to help her to feel more inclusive and that I'm not trying to speak into his ear apart from her.
Right.
And then lastly, with David, I think Gretchen in this chapter talked about proving our love.
She said, it isn't enough to love. We must prove it.
Yeah. And I don't think David, that words are his love language, but food is. So I'm really trying to, he still lives at home. And I've kind of tried to treat it like he's in college, like giving him his space and his time and not meeting him at the door with questions, like he wouldn't have that if he were away. But he does still live here and he does still eat here. So I'm trying to have his favorites around more. And I'm trying to be intentional at least once a week to prepare a meal that I know he loves. And even like texting him at school and saying, hey, tonight we're having this, because I know he looks forward to food too. So, and that's been kind of fun. Next week, John and I are going to be traveling and David's going to be staying here and he'll be studying for finals. So I made him a little finals care package. Aww. And I have like a little bag for every day we're gone with notes and little treats, just so that he knows while we're off having fun, we are thinking about him.
That is so sweet, Julie. I love that.
Yeah. I don't remember where she was talking about the proving it, but was that when she was talking about entering into the interests of others?
Yes,
probably.
Yeah. And I loved how she said, if you want a deeper relationship with someone, you need to be willing to talk about, listen to, and join in their interests. And I tried to do that more this month. I think I tried to ask more questions and listen to the stories more intently. And just, like if someone came up to me and said, hey, watch this TikTok video, instead of still doing what I'm doing and glancing, I tried to put it down and look at the screen and try and think about why do they like that video? Like, what is funny about it?
Marie, I had the exact same example.
You did?
I did.
TikTok videos are a big thing.
It was a TikTok video. And I thought, Why am I watching this? Okay, well, he really wants to show me, and he's laughing his head off, so let's watch it.
Yes, and you have to think about, well, why do they think that's so funny? Because there is a reason, just like when a quote appeals to us, like there's something about that that's appealing to them.
Right. But I will say, Marie, as soon as I really entered into the interest of my son and said, well, I should get a TikTok and hey, I'm going to do some of those and post them. Then all of a sudden, like
that's
I'm
too
way
far,
too,
Mindy.
I know, right? I've crossed the line again.
Yeah. Right. And Gretchen Rubin, she said that in my life, day to day, one practical way to prove my love is to devote my time, attention, and convenience to the people I love. And this reminded me so much of when we used to go swimming. She said, was I putting down my book to watch for the 10th time? Was I cheerfully agreeing to pick something up? Sometimes, I will pick up something for some of them. Maybe they need me to pick up something from the store or this, but maybe I'm not cheerful about it. Or drop something off. Because I think a lot of teenage parenting is picking stuff up for people, dropping stuff off for people, looking stuff up. She said, is she willing to reschedule a date? Lydia had a dentist appointment and she wanted to reschedule for something that I felt she probably could have missed. But I thought, you know what? The dentist, I'm sure, has other openings. She doesn't have a problem. So I said, well, I'll call. I'll see what the options are. And there were options. But, again, with that first instinct of mine being no, when she said, can I change my dentist appointment? I'm like, no.
Absolutely not.
and then I backtrack. I think, well, let the receptionist be the one to say no. Maybe there is a opening and I don't know about it. So
right.
And that's hard. Yeah. Like, I don't know, because like you said, Mindy, there's always a request.
Right. There is.
This month I tried to be more willing to follow through on requests.
It takes a little time to be kind, but then you feel so much better. Mm-hmm. And then when you're kind, then your kids are more kind. And I felt like even respect breeds respect. And so, like by me trying to keep a calm voice or just say, we're not going to talk about it until you can speak respectfully to me. I'm going to treat you with respect. You will do the same for me. I think that's important because our children are under our roofs to learn how to live. I mean, God has given them to us. Who else is going to teach them to be kind, respectful, work hard, keep your word, keep your promise, have healthy habits? They're under our roofs for a reason. It takes being intentional. So this month was good for that, to kind of sit back and make a list of the things. I'm going to work on this and this and this.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great exercise just to, like you said before, Mindy, to kind of take inventory of where we are and what I'm doing, and you just become so much more aware of it.
So, Mindy, I need to hear your story about when you failed.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So there were a couple of factors that played into yesterday. Already had been working on with my younger two boys. They both are in middle school and are in the midst of puberty. So with boys tend to go towards the angry side or the aggressive side as testosterone hits. And I know that. It doesn't bother me. I know what it looks like, smells like. But it's for us to try to help them curb when they feel angry or feel aggressive. But with these two younger boys being of the same age, like Marie, I know you have the twin girls, they might feed off of each other because they're in the same stage and age. Well, I feel like my younger boys are that way. They're so close in age that they can feed off of each other. And really they get in wrestling matches every once in a while. Okay. So yesterday morning, I had to take Grant to get his wisdom teeth out. As soon as we come home, my younger two boys decide to get into a wrestling match that then turns aggressive. And Grant's on the couch, like trying to recover. They go beyond what my limit is, what I feel like they should go. And they're both big enough. I'm not going to get in the middle of it. Yeah. Like I let it go. And I totally underreacted. I was super proud of myself because I didn't say anything. They finished and I just calmly said, both of you need to go take a shower. And then they came down later. And once Grant went and took a nap, I took him to get haircuts. And all I said, I didn't even try to talk to him about the fight. Usually I would sit down, we'd talk through it and, say you're sorry and blah, blah, blah. This time I was like, maybe it was bad or maybe not. I said, if you're going to act like fools, you're going to lose privileges. maybe not the best thing to say as a parent, but I thought, I am not going to react to this. This is ridiculous behavior. And neither one of them argued with me. They both just knew they lost their Xboxes for the day. So then throughout the day, Grant is bleeding. Like he's trying to recover from wisdom teeth, but he will not sit and do what the doctor said. He keeps spitting, which he's not supposed to be spitting.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. I'm thinking, okay, you're going to get dry socket because you're not listening. Here are the instructions,
Right.
And I'm calmly making him gauze after gauze. Like he keeps changing out the gauze. And this goes on for like an hour. And I'm patient. He's angry with himself. He starts walking around. He's bleeding as he's walking. He takes a nap in his bed, which I'm like, you can't sleep in your bed because you're supposed to stay elevated. He will not listen. Like he just knows what he needs to do. And so I'm like, there's going to be blood all over his bed. And there goes, I'm thinking in my head, I got to wash the mattress pad. I got to wash like everything. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I know there's going to be spots of blood on the almost white carpet that he has in his room. All right. But I'm patient. I'm underreacting. Right. And I felt already successful at handling the younger two boys. Well, last night, my poor husband is at work till 10 o'clock. He's dealing with all these things at the hospital. And one of those things is a water issue. Well, as I'm thinking about him, it's like 9:30. I hear this beeping in the basement. I'm up in the kitchen. I can hear it below me, this beeping. I go downstairs and I open the unfinished part of our basement. There is water gushing out of a pipe near our sump pump.
Oh, no.
Oh.
And that's when I lose it. I had been calm and patient and underreacted to Grant all day. Well, guess who did it? Grant.
Well, how did he do that?
He got the bright idea that he was going to practice kicking in our unfinished part of the basement. So there were some pieces of plywood that he moved around. He moved one of the pieces of plywood and knocked the pipe out of the other pipe so that the water that was supposed to be flushed out of the sump pump just flushed out into our basement.
Oh, no.
Okay. So he's on the phone with his girlfriend, but I start yelling at him. I don't care. I'm like, get in here. I cannot believe you did this. Okay. Here's where it just is so lovely, guys. Bryce is with his maintenance guy working on a water issue. And we're on FaceTime and the guy can hear me yelling at Grant. Like I've not only lost it, I've lost it in front of Bryce's coworker. They're both laughing, thinking it's hilarious. I'm like, I cannot believe you are so selfish. You just moved wherever you wanted to go and you didn't even look at the pipe and the water's gushing and I don't even know how to clean this up. I'm like losing my mind.
Yes.
I don't know, Mindy, if your reaction was different than anybody else's would have been.
I don't know how you could underreact to that.
Well, so as much as I'm yelling about the basement, I'm also yelling about you're walking around, leaving a mess everywhere you go. You're a one-man wrecking crew. You're wrecking the whole house. Grant's girlfriend heard me. Bryce heard me. His coworker heard me. Oh, man, it was not good. The basement's okay, though. Everything's okay.
Well, you know what? Grant's never going to forget the day that he got his wisdom teeth out.
And neither will I. It was funny because Bryce, I told you, had been dealing with all these things at the hospital. He's like, I actually think you had a worse day than me.
Oh, my goodness.
Doesn't Gretchen Rubin say some of the worst things make the best stories? Or she has some kind of saying like that.
This will be a good story for you, Mindy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe later.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I really love this quote by Tolstoy near the end of the chapter. It said, each time of life has its own kind of love, and each time of life had its own kind of happiness. And she kind of referred to the fact that when she wrote this chapter, her kids were young. And that's its own kind of happiness in parenting. And now our kids are older, and that's also its own time of happiness in parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think so many times we look at it like, oh, our kids are getting older, so can we have as much happiness in parenting? We can actually have more happiness in parenting if we're able to enjoy the fact that these people that we've put out into the world can make their own decisions. And we have gotten to that point where we can enjoy each other and we don't have to worry about how they're going about everything.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing she said at the very end, she's kind of paraphrasing Mark 4:25 when Jesus says, "For he that hath, to him shall be given, and he that hath not, from him shall be taken even that which he hath." That's King James. And she wasn't saying that Jesus meant what she's about to say, but this is like how that verse could be applied to happiness. She said, it summed up one of the cruel secrets of adulthood. You get more of what you have. And when you feel friendly, people want to be your friend. When you feel attractive, people are attracted to you. When you feel loving, others act lovingly toward you. And this truth is cruel because so often you want others to give you what you lack. Mm-hmm. And, like when we're feeling friendless, that's the time when you want people most to be friendly to you. Mm-hmm. When you feel ugly, you want someone to tell you how good you look. When you feel unloving, you want to be showered with affection, but that's just not the way the world works. Mm-hmm. And I like the way she called that a cruel truth because it is.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if we want to have more happiness in our parenting with our kids, she says that the only person we can change is ourselves. If we want a household with an affectionate, encouraging, and playful atmosphere, then we have to bring that spirit.
My 8th grade son made just the best comment through the month, and I wrote it down to make sure I could remember it. But I'm just his favorite person to pick on right now. And Bryce tells me he just loves you so much, Mindy. He loves picking on you. And he just tries to find things like he knows I love drinking my coffee. He'll try to take my coffee cup and hide it. And he just starts giggling and thinks that's the funniest thing. And I'm like, just give me my coffee. I just want my coffee, And I know he's just teasing me, but he made that comment about how mom just loves to smile so much. She's just so happy. And it made me feel really good. He joked that I always smile when I see him. And that made me feel so good because I remember, this is funny, Oprah talking about like when you walked into the room, how your mother's face would look. Does she get happy or is she frustrated or does she even look at you? It meant a lot to me that he thought that I smiled a lot.
It's like your paycheck to hear comments like that, that's like
gold.
Makes it worth it,
Yeah, I think our kids do want us to be happy. Like you said, when your parents aren't happy, you feel like, oh, what can I do? We want them to be happy. I know my boys can be very aware of my happiness level and I can't hide anything. I tend to get quiet or you can read it on my face. And it's like, what's wrong, mom? And
right.
They just want me to be happy.
If we can leave them with a few more happy memories than angry memories, I'm all about that.
For sure. All right, you guys. Well, something that always makes me happy is talking about I'm a fan. Julie, I can't wait to hear what you're a fan of this week.
Well, I am a huge, huge fan of the movie It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is the Mr. Rogers movie with Tom Hanks. It is such a powerful movie. It just has such a great, great message. And it was really relevant to this topic because Mr. Rogers, is all about children and valuing children and even kind of the child inside of us. In the movie, you really don't learn much about Mr. Rogers' life at all. Totally what I did not expect. It was all what you learned about him was through how he affected other people, how he loved other people well. He was a Presbyterian minister. He was a man of faith. But his wife said he rarely talked about his faith because he felt like it was more important to live it, show it, that his life was his sermon. And, I think we all can say that, like, oh, it's more important to show it than to say it. But do we? And he really, really did. So I think everybody should see the movie. It's really, really powerful.
Oh, that's great.
Wow. Yes. I love hearing that.
Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a huge fan of new friends. I, of course, am new to Pennsylvania, but it's been, I guess a little over a year. And last Friday, my schedule, I had different people that were scheduled back to back the entire day that the kids were gone. So I was actually meeting 3 different friends. And it was the first time that had happened. Usually I make sure that I schedule downtime or quiet to be alone. But each time somebody contacted me, I was like, oh, yes, I have that time frame open. And it was the most fun, exhilarating thing to think, I can't believe I actually have 3 friends to meet with today.
Oh, that's so great.
It was just the most fun, and it didn't wear me out. It totally built me up and charged me. And I thought I would have been worn out, but I wasn't. Even so that in between 2 of the friends, I called my mom and had another conversation.
Wow. You had one of those introvert days where all the stars align.
Yes. I was total extrovert that day, and I just absolutely loved it. And I thought how blessed I am to actually have friends to kind of, walk with, have coffee with, meet for this with. And it just felt so, so good.
Yeah.
I know you've been looking forward to when that day would come, knowing it would come, but
yes.
making it through that waiting period till.
Yes. I just felt like I was really thriving, I really did. So new friends.
Well, I'm kind of going in the same direction as you, Mindy. I was going to say that I am a big fan of entertaining this week. For the past few years, I've had Friendsgiving. I just wanted to say to listeners that you can invite people into your home, and you can even forget to put the meat on until like 20 minutes before they get there, and they can stand around for an hour and wait to be finished, and you can still all have a good time.
Yes. Yes.
So like I had made a turkey the day before, and I had in my mind I was making a ham. But I sort of got in a little discussion with my older daughter, and I don't know, I was so consumed by what we were talking about that I completely forgot about putting this ham in until like 20 minutes before people were going to come. And I was like, oh my goodness, but I don't have enough turkey to serve everybody. Like, I need this ham. So I just started it, and it was good. Someone had brought an appetizer. We ate that, and we just waited, but you don't always have to have, I think sometimes we feel like we have to have everything planned out, and people need to have like the exact stuff, but you can totally mess up and it's still a good time.
Oh, how fun. It's so true though, Marie. And I love that you're talking about hospitality that way, because people feel more comfortable when you're comfortable and relaxed.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I ran out of forks at one time because I hadn't started the dishwasher like I had planned on, but it didn't matter. So
no, I can attest to that. I was there and it was great. And I don't know. I don't think that was the focus. Anybody was thinking about that,
Right.
Oh,
and actually,
awesome.
Julie, when everybody left, and it was dry. I had tried ham in an Instant Pot. I don't know. I don't know if I did it quite right or if it's just not the way to go. But my 17-year-old, he came downstairs. He goes, Mom, that ham. I said, I know. Here I made people stand around for that ham, and that it could not have been more dry and tasteless.
That's
but
so
I
funny.
thought, well, that's the way it went.
Yeah.
They'll forget about it by next year. Well, I've loved having this conversation. I've loved the encouragement that it's given me in my parenting, and I hope that this was encouraging to our listeners. If you're reading along with the book with us and you read the parenting chapter this month, email us, message us on Instagram. We'd love to hear some of the things that you guys worked on and how it went. Next month, it is interior design. We're going to be working on the interior of ourselves. And I haven't read that chapter yet, but I love inner work.
Oh my gosh, Marie, that's like my least favorite thing.
And in December, on top of that.
Yes, we have to do inner work in December. So listeners, in January, you'll be hearing that episode, and we'll be letting you know how it went. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye, Mindy and Julie.
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. If you'd like to help us spread the word about Midlife Matters with one of our free bumper stickers, please email your name and address to midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. For links to everything in today's episode, see our show notes at midlifematterspodcast.com or come and follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.